Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show where we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1. We're currently between the Singapore and United States Grand Prix, but which stories have been catching the headlines this week? This week, Carlos Sainz has publicly criticised the F1 TV coverage, Haas are set to sign Jack Doohan for 2026, and Alex Palou has made the incredible claim that McLaren never really wanted to sign Oscar Piastri in 2023. All that and a whole lot more is coming up in today's show. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamp in the video description to watch the story you're most interested in. So without further ado, let's dive in. So it's fair to say that Formula 1 has come in for a bit of flack recently when it comes to its TV coverage. The direction has been rather shoddy, to paraphrase James Hunt from back in the day. Now, Formula 1 TV coverage has evolved a lot over the years. Gone are the days of the local broadcaster basically touting and hyping up their local driver, like, I don't know, Esteban Tuero back in the day in Argentina, where he was like 18th and back of the grid pretty much, and they always wanted to focus on him because he's the local lad effectively. Those days are pretty much gone, but the TV coverage recently has come in for a lot of criticism, not just from the fans, but also from the drivers too. And I think what Carlos Sainz has said, one of the directors of the GPDA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association, is actually pretty spot on, to be honest. A lot of people were saying that it was pretty dull, and they actually missed a lot of the action really when it came to this. In highlight format, it wasn't that bad really, but 2-hour race coverage could have been better for sure. And when it came to some of the decisions about what they were showing on the track, or in this case off the track, it really ruffled the feathers of a lot of people, because there weren't that many overtakes in Singapore, which is, you know, kind of par for the course really. At the end of the day, Singapore is a very tricky track to overtake around. It's more about the physical challenge, the street fighting battles really when it comes to that, rather than actual overtaking, which, you know, we're going to see it twice next year. We've got a sprint race at Singapore next year. Yay, that's going to be great. But let me have a look at what Carlos Sainz has said here for you guys, because I think he's really spot on when it comes to this, because it does show that these days Formula 1 is about more than just the F1, more than the racing itself. And I think that the TV directors are trying to pander to an audience that might exist. It might be out there. The demand to see these things might be out there. But overall, I would have to say most F1 fans absolutely hate this, and it has to change. And will it change? Probably not. But let me just read out what Carlos Sainz has said here, guys, the actual quote for you. So shout out to El Partidazo de Cope, who I'm presuming are a Spanish broadcaster or media organisation of some kind. Never heard of them before personally, but shout out to them because they got this quote from Carlos Sainz. He said, quote, "It's becoming a bit of a trend, which must have worked for them once upon a time when people found it interesting to see our girlfriends, to see famous people on TV, the reactions. I understand that if there is an overtake, a very tense moment in the race, it is understandable that the production team might want to show a reaction shot if they have seen that was worked in the past, but they only should if the competition is respected and you are always showing the important moments of the race. Last week they did not show any of the 4 or 5 overtakes I did at the end, nor did they show Fernando's pursuit of Lewis. They missed a lot of things. The other thing is fine, but don't lose the sight of the main thing. For me, they go overboard a little showing the celebrities and girlfriends." End quote. And I think he's absolutely spot on. I mean, a textbook example for me is the overtake of Michael Schumacher by Mika Hakkinen at the 2000 Belgian Grand Prix. You saw the action out on track, you saw the overtake, then they cut back to the McLaren garage, and Mika's wife or girlfriend at the time, I can't remember which one she was at the time, she was celebrating with the McLaren crew, but you didn't miss the action out on track. It's cool to see the fan reactions. It's amazing to see how the Tifosi react to Ferrari making an overtake at Monza or Imola, how the Spanish crowd react to Alonso or Sainz making a overtake, how the British fans react to Norris or Hamilton making a pass out on the track. It's good to see that. That is part of it. It's part of the show, if you will. Part of the appeal of Formula 1 is the fans themselves, of course, but it's a race. It'd be like football not showing a goal. Remember the uproar back in the day when England scored during an ITV ad break, I think 2008, something like that, a long time ago. There was uproar about it, and rightfully so. It was disgraceful. Now, of course, there are less goals in football than there are overtakes in Formula One, depending on the track. Unless we're talking about Monaco here, then Monaco's probably got less overtakes on the track. But, you should really not lose sight of this. And Formula One, you all make mistakes. It happens, right? But they made so many during the coverage. They made so many. Everybody's up in arms about this, and rightfully so. I totally understand it. Will they rectify this for the United States Grand Prix? Probably not. Probably not, especially with how many celebrities will be there and stuff. They'll cut back to a shot of Joe Rogan celebrating a McLaren overtaking the garage or whatever. Something like that could easily happen, but we'll have to see, guys. We'll have to see if they learn from their mistakes or not. But yeah, get your thoughts in the comments below. After being ousted from his Alpine Formula One racing seat, Jack Doohan has been the reserve driver for the French outfit. Amid an uncertain future in Formula One, would he get another chance at Alpine? Would he have to move to another racing series? Would he have to move to another team? And it appears now we know the answer to that question. He is going to another team, but not to be a race driver, but to be a reserve driver. And I think this could very much be a smart move for Jack Doohan. Of course, Jack is the son of legendary motorcycle champion Mick Doohan, and he had a stellar junior career before joining Formula One in 2025 after a cameo appearance at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix at the end of the 2024 season. And he is set to join Haas, where of course he will link up with Esteban Ocon, who used to drive for Alpine before Jack effectively took over that seat at the start of 25. But yeah, this is an interesting move for sure. Jack probably very keen to get rid of Flavio Briatore, but Flav is also his manager, so I'm not sure how that would work, to be honest. But let's have a look at the full story for you here, guys. Got it on the F1chronicle.com as always. Jack Doohan's uncertain Formula One journey could soon take a new direction, with multiple sources indicating that the Aussie may part ways with Alpine to pursue a reserve driver role at Haas next year. Doohan has been a key part of Alpine's driver academy since 2022 and impressed during his early Formula 2 campaigns, earning several Friday practice outings as a result. However, the French team's shifting priorities have left his path to a full-time Formula One seat increasingly unclear. Initially, Doohan's management ties to Flavio Briatore appeared to strengthen his prospects, especially after Briatore returned to an advisory role with Alpine earlier this year. Yet, that connection now seems to have held less sway at the team, as they are finalising its driver plans for next year. Reports from the Singapore paddock suggest that Alpine's shortlist for next season has been narrowed to 3 names, retaining Franco Colapinto, recalling Jack Doohan, or promoting Paul Aron from its junior ranks. Of course, Pierre Gasly has signed a long-term extension with the team. He'll be there until at least 2028, RIP his career. Briatore has confirmed that the second seat alongside Pierre Gasly will be filled internally, but with Colapinto struggling for form and Aron impressing in Formula 2, Doohan once again looks to miss out. Adding fuel to the speculation, both Jack and his father, MotoGP legend Mick Doohan, were seen in conversation with Haas team principal Ayo Komatsu during recent race weekends. The American outfit is reportedly assessing reserve driver options amid uncertainty surrounding Ollie Bearman, who currently sits on 10 of the 12 penalty points that would trigger a race ban. Bearman's not going to get thrown out of Haas before anybody even suggests that the Ferrari links will prevent that, and of course I think he's done a good job overall, although obviously his conduct there, 10 penalty points out of 12, yeah, that's not a good look. And obviously at the moment that would mean that Kevin Magnussen would come back to the team, which is not the worst driver to have come back, but I don't think that K-Mag wants to come back to driving Formula 1, to be honest. I think he's enjoying himself in sports cars too much. But officially, the third driver currently in the Haas team is Ryo Harikawa, and he is also heavily committed to Toyota's World Endurance Championship program, leaving the team potentially short-handed for 26. Of course, if Harikawa is on the other side of the world driving in endurance racing, he can't go and super sub in for Ollie Bearman if he gets a race ban, which he could conceivably get in qualifying for a race or in practice for a race. It could be very short notice. Of course, we've got the USGP coming up. That's a sprint race too. If you get a big penalty in that, you could miss the Grand Prix on Sunday. A move to Haas could therefore offer Doohan a lifeline in Formula 1, keeping him close to the grid while maintaining a race sharpness through possible Super Formula campaigning in Japan, supported by Toyota, who are of course a partner of Haas nowadays. The manufacturer is believed to be open to facilitating such a dual arrangement. Doohan's prospects at Alpine appear increasingly slim despite early hopes of a long-term future with the team. His lack of recent seat time contrasts sharply with Colapinto's ongoing F1 mileage, and insiders suggest that Briatore is unlikely to intervene to alter the team's current trajectory. If the move does materialise, a switch to Haas could represent both a fresh start and a strategic step forward for Doohan, allowing him to remain embedded in the F1 ecosystem while positioning himself for future opportunities. For now, the Aussie's focus appears to be on staying visible, staying prepared, and keeping his F1 dream alive. Because I must admit, after he got downgraded from the race seat to the reserve role with Alpine, that was very much a big step back, and his career at that point appeared to be in tatters. I'll honestly be surprised if he ever makes it back to a race seat in Formula 1, but his best opportunity is with another team, and Haas is a good opportunity. They're a relatively chill team. I mean, any team is relatively chill compared to Alpine, and having Briatore there, who is of course the de facto team principal now. So that team's a mess. Get out of there and sack Briatore as your manager if you know what's good for you doing, basically. Get out of that team. It's a toxic environment, and has to be a good one to go to. I really do think that'd be a decent one for him. And who knows, the opportunity to get into a race seat, it could arise. Ollie Behrman, he might go back to Ferrari to be their number 2 driver at some point, and Doohan might be promoted internally. He might get his chance then. We don't know. We'll have to see. If buts and maybes, but I do think it's a possibility for sure. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about that? Doohan at Haas, is that the right move for his career, or is it not? The pressure is mounting on Yuki Tsunoda. Singapore, of course, is the Grand Prix where Daniel Ricciardo was sacked from the Racing Bulls team, and it was not a particularly great race for Yuki Tsunoda this year at Red Bull Racing. His teammate Max Verstappen was in second place during this race. He held off Lando Norris, who was in a much faster McLaren during this Grand Prix. He was excellent. However, Tsunoda out of the points again, started down in 15th place. It was not a particularly good weekend for Tsunoda, and honestly, with the way that Isaac Hadjar is going, with all the noise going around in the paddock, I said it during the summer break, I said that Tsunoda would be replaced by Isaac Hadjar next year. I fully believe that is going to happen. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I really don't, because I feel like Hadjar will probably just do the same thing that Tsunoda has, a really promising young driver who goes into that team and just gets absolutely eaten alive. He gets absolutely destroyed by Max Verstappen on the other side of the garage. The cycle repeats itself. We've seen it so many times before. Kvyat, Albon, Gasly, Perez, Tsunoda. Doesn't matter who you put in that car, it always ends up badly. It really does. And his new team principal, Lauren Mekies, has not exactly defended his driver. He called his start absolutely shocking. So let's have a look, guys, here on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Red Bull team principal Lauren Mekies did not mince his words when describing Yuki Tsunoda's start at the Singapore Grand Prix, calling it shocking. The Japanese driver himself went even further than that, labelling it the worst start of his life after a difficult weekend under the lights in Marina Bay. Tsunoda finished a disappointing 12th behind behind Isaac Hadjar of the Racing Bulls, who was managing a power unit issue that reportedly cost him around 0.4 of a second per lap. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen finished second behind race winner George Russell, underlining the performance gap within the Red Bull family. The result is a blow to Tsunoda's hopes of securing his place on the F1 grid next year. Red Bull's driver pool remains crowded, with Hadjar, Liam Lawson, Arvid Lindblad and Alex Dunn all vying for limited seats across Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls. Just to clarify with Alex Dunn there, because you might be wondering, Alex Dunn, isn't he a McLaren driver? He was recently released from his contract at McLaren because there's no real opportunity for him to get a race seat. I mean, they've got Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, so the heavy rumour is that he might join Red Bull, and given how well he's doing in Formula 2 right now, Red Bull will be very keen to sign him up, and that could be a potential route into Formula 1 with him, getting into the Racing Bulls team. So that is why. He's not an official Red Bull driver as of the time of recording. However, I'd be surprised if he doesn't join them. He's definitely going to join somebody. It does feel like Gabriel Bortoleto, 12 months on, the exact same thing happened with him. Although I'll be surprised if he gets a race seat for next year. Although it is possible. It's absolutely possible that could happen. Stranger things happen in Formula 1. Mekies said the following on Tsunoda in Singapore, quote, "Yeah, you're right. It was not a good Saturday for Yuki. On Friday, I was satisfied with the work he did. It didn't look spectacular on paper, but lap by lap, it was the right level. Then Saturday was poor, and we need to work with him to understand what went wrong," end quote. The race itself began disastrously for Tsunoda, who fell from his starting position to 18th after a sluggish getaway and contact on the opening lap. Indeed, Tsunoda was on the clean side of the grid as well in 15th, which had a massive difference between the clean side and the dirty side. He was one of the few drivers on the clean side, though, to really suffer. Mekies continued, quote, "Today the first lap was certainly shocking, but from that point onwards, I think he drove a very decent race," end quote. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst race after that, but no points, and being behind a racing bull had an engine issue. It's not really great, is it? It's not good. Despite recovering several positions, Tsunoda's struggles in Singapore came at a critical time. With Red Bull evaluating its 2026 lineup and younger drivers closing in, the 25-year-old faces mounting pressure to deliver consistent result in the final race of the season. It is not out of the realms of possibility for Yuki Tsunoda to be kicked off the Formula 1 grid entirely next year. I think it's unlikely. I think at worst he's going to be demoted to Racing Bulls, but we know what they're like for promoting young drivers. We know it's definitely possible. Red Bull are that crazy when it comes to their drivers that it wouldn't surprise me if Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda were both out of a drive next year. They get Alex Dunn and they get Arvid Lindblad into the Racing Bulls and they promote Isaac Hadjar to the Red Bull Racing seat. Is that the right thing to do? No, absolutely not. 100% no. I would not back that at all, but it is Red Bull. We know what they're like. We know what they do. We know how they go about their unique style of business. But yeah, I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below, guys. Tsunoda, should he keep his seat next year at Red Bull Racing? Will he keep his seat? Two very different questions with potentially two different answers. I want to hear what you have to say as always. It's been revealed that Zak Brown never wanted to sign Oscar Piastri to McLaren. Unbelievable stuff given what has happened since then. Of course, Oscar Piastri was an Alpine Academy driver before McLaren absolutely gazumped the French outfit by controversially signing him to the team in 2023. Of course, since then, Piastri has now established himself as one of the most promising talents in Formula 1, maybe the most promising talent, some may argue, and a potential world champion this year and in the future as well. Of course, he leads the championship right now. He has been a monumental signing for McLaren, as they have won back-to-back constructors titles in 2024 and 2025, the first time they managed that since the early 1990s. But yeah, this has all come out in a big court battle going on right now with McLaren. Let's have a look at the details of this, guys, because yeah, I mean, what you say in public and what you say in private is obviously going to be different naturally, but when things come out that have happened in private like this, it does make you wonder, like, wow, how close were they to actually not signing him? Let's have a look at the full story here on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Because imagine if Piastri was driving an Alpine right now. Scary prospect. IndyCar champion Alex Palou has made sensational allegations against McLaren Racing amid an ongoing legal dispute, claiming CEO Zak Brown never really wanted to sign Australian Formula 1 driver Oscar Piastri in the first place. The revelations come from a witness statement submitted to the UK High Court, where McLaren is suing Palou for breach of contract after he withdrew from a deal to race for the team's IndyCar program. McLaren is seeking up to $30 million in damages, alleging that his decision caused significant sponsorship and commercial losses. According to Palou's testimony, McLaren executives assured him that he would one day eventually receive an opportunity to race in Formula 1. However, he claims that understanding changed once McLaren signed Piastri to replace Daniel Ricciardo for the 2023 Formula 1 season. Palou alleges that Brown told him the decision to hire Piastri was made by then-team principal Andreas Seidel, and that the Australian's arrival would not affect his long-term prospects within the organisation. Palou stated the following in his witness statement, quote, "Zak told me it was not his decision to hire Oscar. He said my performance would be compared to Oscar's for possible F1 consideration," end quote. The Spaniard also said that he was upset and angry after learning of Piastri's signing, believing that his Formula 1 ambitions had been derailed. Although Palou served as McLaren's reserve driver in 2023, he ultimately chose to remain with Chip Ganassi Racing in IndyCar, a move that has since paid off, with Palou securing 3 consecutive championships between 23 and 25. However, because of this court case, it might not pay off financially in the long term. $30 million is a lot of money, even for someone like Palou. McLaren CEO Zak Brown has categorically denied Palou's claims. In a testimony reported by Reuters and the Financial Times, Brown insisted that he never strung along the Spaniard or promised him a Formula One seat, stating that no such guarantee was ever discussed. Court filings also revealed that Palou explored other opportunities during his time with McLaren, including preliminary talks with AlphaTauri, who are now RB, in mid-2023. Those discussions reportedly collapsed once Red Bull learned of the contractual complaints surrounding his McLaren deal, very much wanting to stay out of that Red Bull, and I don't blame them. The case has reignited scrutiny over McLaren's internal driver dynamics, particularly amid speculation that the team continues to favour Lando Norris over Piastri. That tension between the two drivers was evident at the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix last week, where Norris forced Piastri wide at turn 3, which was an incident that the team chose not to investigate. Well, they did investigate it, but they didn't do anything. They took no further action like the stewards. But I've already had my say on that, guys. Go check out that video. It'll probably be linked at the end of this one if you're watching on YouTube. Adding further intrigue, Swiss outlet Blick recently reported that Piastri has been linked to a potential move to Ferrari for the 2027 season, though neither side has commented publicly on the rumour. I mean, Hamilton was going to Ferrari in 2009, if you believed all the rumours back then. I mean, he eventually did make his way to Ferrari, but it took him nearly 20 years after those rumours first happened. Especially with Piastri having an Italian last name, those rumours will always be there. Paul Di Resta was linked to them back in the day. Daniel Ricciardo, it's all this Italian diaspora. They're always linked to it. Of course, Hamilton, not an Italian diaspora, but you take my point. Anybody who does very well in Formula One, and if they have an Italian-sounding last name, they're going to Ferrari one day, if you believe the press. Despite the off-track controversy, Piastri remains focused on his title campaign. The 24-year-old currently leads the Formula One World Championship by 22 points heading into the USGP on October 20th. So yeah, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what's actually happened here. I mean, we'll have to see if any more of this comes out in the wash. But what I would say is that if Zak Brown didn't want to sign Oscar Piastri, then why did he go out of his way to sign him? You know, he saw an opportunity there and he went for it, and it worked. You know, contract law is different in different countries. It's a very complicated matter between Piastri, McLaren and Alpine, which I think got settled last year. I could be wrong. I know Alpine tried to sue McLaren and I think they came to a settlement in the end. I could be wrong on that one. But yeah, I mean, I would hazard as a guess there's a bit of truth in both of these things. You know, I imagine, you know, when he was given the whole speech about joining McLaren, Palou was told, like, yeah, you could be our world champion one day. Yeah, you definitely got a chance of getting in F1. And then obviously the Alpine situation arose with Piastri and it all changed. Suddenly you've got a guy who's younger, who turns out is probably more talented. I mean, no offense to Palou, but you know, Piastri is a generational talent. That kid is unbelievable. He really, really is. He could be a multiple world champion easily. Could Palou be a multiple Formula One world champion? No, I don't see it personally, but he's a very good driver nonetheless, so I can imagine why he's annoyed. And you know, when McLaren are saying you owe us $30 million here, Palou, you know, Alex probably wants to try and give as much credence to his side of the story as possible. So we'll see what happens. It's probably going to get settled at some point between the two of them. You know, Palou's going to have to pay like $10 million or something for breach of contract. That's probably what's going to happen. But we'll see what happens, guys. Any kind of updates will bring you. But an interesting story there for sure. Do you think that's true? Do you think that Palou is telling the truth there? Do you think that Brown never really wanted to sign Piastri? I have my doubts personally. I have my doubts. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below.